What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news this Thursday, and of course that means we get the TWID, which if you don't know is Bungie's weekly news update. So as always there are some recaps in here, but Bungie give us a few more details about some items that'll be changing as part of Revenant, the next episode for D2, so it's interesting to get into that stuff. Plus there's more conversation about the rumoured Destiny mobile game, where apparently new details about it are slipping out. So we've got a few things to cover in the video today. As always, I hope you enjoy this one and find it useful. If you do, a rating below really does help us on the channel, but otherwise, let's get into it. And before we get into the majority of the TWID updates here, Destiny Bulletin has reported some new rumours about Destiny Rising, which is the currently unannounced title for a Destiny mobile game. So, Destiny Bulletin have said, Destiny Rising, a mobile game set in the universe, features new heroes, story missions, strikes, and PvP. Plus, sources reveal minimal Bungie involvement and development led by NetEase. So, apparently this is codenamed Viper, and over the past few weeks there have been a few little bits of information which have been rumoured about it. Bungie haven't officially announced anything to do with it just yet, so we should take some of this with a pinch of salt, although the sources are fairly reliable. And apparently at the start of Destiny Rising's development, Bungie was heavily involved to the point where it sought to renegotiate the contract with NetEase to establish a co-development partnership. However, when the negotiations fell through, Bungie reduced its role, scaling back its involvement significantly, which of course is pretty interesting. And according to these reports, recently Bungie's contribution has been largely limited to providing narrative and support around the development, offering visual assets such as character models and references, with only around 5 or 6 members of the Bungie team actually working directly on the project. And so it sounds like Bungie have not been developing the bulk of this new title. In terms of gameplay though, apparently Destiny Rising is a third-person shooter, which has a variety of modes that should feel similar to a long-time Destiny fan, including elements like PvP, strikes, and story missions. And they say the gunplay closely mirrors that of Destiny 2, capturing a lot of the same look and feel. And a while back, apparently, a raid was actually in development, but it's unclear if this is still on track for release. Otherwise though, it's also been reported that instead of having our own characters that we build over time, the focus will be on hero characters, predefined heroes, some of whom will be new to the universe, while others are recognizable figures from the lore. They also said that a source mentioned the original story was set during the Warlord era as a sort of prequel to Destiny's main story, but it's currently unknown if that may have changed over the course of time. Otherwise though, there is that interesting conversation about the monetization model for this project, and they cite some of the negative sentiment around Diablo Immortal, which of course was also developed by NetEase. So it is interesting that more and more bits of information are coming out about this. It also appears that it may potentially be announced somewhat soon, as a bunch of domain names and things have been registered, such as Play Destiny Rising, which currently aren't live, but it indicates that we might see a reveal at some point in the very near future. So I thought that was worth a quick mention nonetheless. Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section, and of course if we do get any official details, I will keep you posted. Next up though, let's get on to Bungie's TWID update, and firstly, they talk about a dev insight that we're going to see next week. So they say on Wednesday, September 25th, we'll have a new article delivered directly by Destiny 2 developers, and it's focused on answering some questions that we have about codename Frontiers. They don't go into any more detail about specifically what they'll touch on, but more information about Frontiers is interesting, and I'll keep you posted on that as always. Next up though, Bungie started to talk a little bit about changes coming in episode Revenant, which begins on October 8th. And this is split really between sort of rewards and the sandbox side of the game. There are quite a few changes coming to subclasses and Titans in particular. So initially they speak about rewards and they say, we're here with some updates focused on Nightfalls and Lost Sector rewards, and the drop chances for non-adept weapons have been increased in Advanced, Expert, and Master Nightfalls when earning Platinum and Gold tier completions. And with this change, non-adept Nightfall weapons are now guaranteed to drop when completing a Platinum run in a Master Nightfall, and have a 50% chance to drop if it's a Gold completion. But additionally, adept weapon drops from Grandmaster Nightfalls have been significantly increased when getting Gold completions, although Platinum remains the best course of action for earning them, as completion guarantees a drop. So not sure if this has really been a common complaint, but more Nightfall weapon drops overall can't be a bad thing, I suppose. And then for Nightfall focusing, they say there's a minor update, and the weekly featured Nightfall weapon and the adept version of the weapon have been moved to a new featured category with updated costs. So the weekly featured Nightfall weapon will now cost 1 Vanguard Engram and a Nightfall Cypher, with the Adept variant requiring 1 Vanguard Engram, 50,000 Glimmer, and 10 Nightfall Cyphers. So give us your thoughts about those. Updates to Nightfall rewards, I suppose, is a positive. They also speak about Lost Sector rewards, and they say starting in Revenant, the Whirlpool weapons will be farmable in Lost Sectors the very season that they are added to the game. So previously we've had to wait until the next season or episode to launch, but there is a chart in the TWID which we won't list fully, as it's fairly similar to what exists right now, but Bungie will be introducing world weapons from this episode, like the Yaravid MG4, as well as brand new weapons in each of the groupings. So there'll be 4 different groupings, and we can see they've listed a redacted weapon for each of them. I'll link the TWID down below if you want to check that chart out in full, but a couple of new weapons will be available on each day of the week, and one of them will be brand new when episode 2 drops. They're also going to be increasing the power band in the next episode, and of course Bungie have gone back and forth with this, but starting on October 8th, and then again with the next episode, which I think will be in the winter at the start of next year, they say we'll once more be increasing power caps by 10 to return that pursuit to endgame players. So the power floor will be 1900, soft cap is 1950, and then powerful cap is at 2000, and the hard cap or pinnacle is 2010. So the power chase will once again be a thing starting with Revenant. Let us know what you think about that. I don't mind it being reintroduced, although it's possible that if lots of folks complain about it, they'll remove it again next year. So we'll see how things go. But interestingly, they get onto sandbox changes around abilities and subclasses. And they say starting with Revenant, we're testing a change to barricades and other shields that will give Titans more of a traditional tank role. And so Titan Barricade now taunts enemies in front of the barricade, and they say this taunt only occurs while there is a player standing behind the barricade. And basically Titan players will be able to use their defensive abilities to draw enemy fire, thereby shielding their fire team from harm. And they add that Unbreakable Shield and Sentinel Shield will also be able to taunt enemies, but if this change plays well, they're hoping to add this functionality to more of the Titan's defensive abilities like Ward of Dawn in the future. So interesting on paper. Of course, we'll have to see what it's actually like in the game. I guess it'll be a bit like a decoy from Onslaught or something like that, but on top of the other benefits, it should be good for increasing survivability. They say as well there are additional adjustments to barricades and Unbreakable, so towering and rally barricades on all subclasses will see reduced to non-boss combatant damage dealt by 50%, so that's reasonably significant, and of course enemies will now be firing at those, so it's good to have, I suppose. And then they're increasing splash damage reduction from combatants for players behind the barricade from 20% to 60%. Finally though, barricades will now grant moderate damage resistance versus combatants during the cast animation, and so those sound pretty interesting. And then for Unbreakable, they say damage blocked by Unbreakable now generates grenade energy. They've also increased the maximum duration that the shield can be held, and forward movement speed now slows down briefly when the shield is shot. On top of that though, they've reduced Unbreakable's throw attack damage versus players by 20%, increased damage bleed through from players by 15%, and they add that fully charged Unbreakable attacks will now one-shot barricades in PvP, except for when the barricade is under the effects of Heart of Inmost Light. So some reasonably significant adjustments to those as well. Plus, there's a bit of a change to Void Overshield on Titans, and they've increased the Overshield PvE damage resistance from 50% to 70%, which increases the maximum effective HP from 90 to 150. So I wasn't really anticipating so many changes to kind of Void elements of Titans, but I think those sound pretty good. Next up though, they get onto Prismatic Titan, which of course has been more of a focus in this past episode. And so for the various elements of Prismatic Titans, for Consecration, they say Scorch and Slam Waves will now shatter stasis crystals, and then for Diamond Lance, thrown or slammed Diamond Lances will now shatter stasis crystals. Plus slamming a Diamond Lance will grant you and nearby allies 2 stacks of Frost Armor, that's a good one. Plus they've changed the weapon tray HUD to display how many seconds are remaining before Diamond Lance disappears, much like a Tangle. Then for Knockout, melee kills now cancel health and shield stun, in addition to healing, allowing you to immediately start regenerating. And that's a revert of the previous nerf that had too much of a negative impact on PvE. Plus for Shiver Strike, it now attaches a stasis explosive to the target on impact. And this detonation slows players and freezes combatants. Plus it refunds 80% melee energy on whiff, and then we increase the energy recharge rate by 12.5%, plus immediately after landing a Shiver Strike attack, the attacker's melee ability is now suppressed for 0.5 seconds. But they recognise as well that the facet of command change that we saw previously, but also applying to Echo of Domineering, moving into next episode, the cooldown is being reduced from 11 seconds to 4 seconds. So overall on paper, those sound pretty good. good. At least they are definite improvements over the current Prismatic Titan, but we'll see how it pans out in game. Give us your thoughts down in the comments section though. For other classes though, at the launch of Revenant for Warlocks and Stormtrance, they're increasing the damage resistance from 53% to 58%. For Chaos Reach, they're increasing damage resistance from 45% to 55%. Plus they fixed a problem with Chaos Reach where it wouldn't jolt at higher frame rates, and another where it wouldn't go through Sentinel Shield's guard or the Titan's barricade. Plus, for Nova Warp, they're increasing PvE damage by 20%. They've also increased damage resistance from 51% to 58%. And now, any Nova Warp detonation applies volatile regardless of charge duration. So those are some nice boosts there for the Warlock. And for Hunters, Golden Gun in particular, and Marksman and Deadshot, they're increasing damage against base, elite, and mini-boss combatants by 30%. And for Spectral Blades, they're increasing PvE damage by 20%, with increased damage resistance from 47 up to 58. Some other classes are getting some love as well, but other components of Titans that'll see a change include Glacial Quake, and Howl of the Storm can now be used while Glacial Quake is active. Plus for Twilight Arsenal, thrown axe projectiles are now more consistently tracking towards targets closer to the reticle, and they're increasing Twilight Arsenal's axe relic weapon damage versus combatants by 23%. Then the relic change sounds good. Plus, for Thunder Crash, they're increasing the base detonation damage by 33%, so that's fairly huge, and for Fist of Havoc, they're increasing damage resistance from 51 to 58%. They've also changed how the light attack works under the hood to improve consistency in hitting targets, and they've slightly increased the light attack's lunge range and ability to target enemies vertically. There's even more though, and for Lightning Surge, on Warlocks they say when casting Lightning Surge it now has 50% damage resistance versus Titan Barricades during the lunge. And casting Lightning Surge now also makes you amplified, so that's good. And then there are some Prismatic Hunter components right here, and they say for Hailfire Spike, they've added projectile tracking and aim assist to increase consistency in hitting targets. Then for Threaded Spectre, they've increased the detonation damage against PvE combatants by 33%. Plus for Swarm Grenade, submunitions are now easier for all players to shoot down, and they can chain detonate other submunitions when destroyed. I thought those Swarm Grenade changes in particular already went live, perhaps I'm mistaken, but nonetheless those will additionally apply to Hunters. So give us your thoughts on that bit of a sandbox preview right there. Of course, there may be more stuff for exotics, as Bungie have spoken about, but also weapon tuning, so we'll probably get more of those details soon, but some good super and subclass changes there on the most part, and I'd love to get your thoughts in the comment section. The final kind of useful bit from the TWAB though, and for the Skywatch change where Bungie are increasing enemy density, it will arrive next Tuesday on September 24th as part of update 8055, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Might be useful for folks still wanting to get that title, we'll find out next week. And for anyone who's been stuck with the Solstice Forge in their inventory, this will be fixed on September 24th as well. Otherwise guys, that really is the useful info from TWAB. As always, I'll keep you posted when we get more details next week, both from the TWAB and the blog post that we'll see on Wednesday, so keep it locked and loaded. For now, give us your thoughts in the comment section on what Bungie have previewed today. If you've enjoyed the video, a rating really does help us out on the channel, but otherwise thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.